Once you've ruled out the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Benton. It is vampires, and there's a host of damned souls of telepaths.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
He's dead. He can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Hi everybody, this is Irene Allen Block, the host of the Paranormal UK radio show, the flagship show of the Paranormal UK radio station. And today I'm glad to say, well, I'm not glad to say, because, you know, I feel like I've lost an arm, but my sidekick's not with me today. Markle Farkle is busy doing something else. So what we've got, or who I've got, is another host, one that has his own radio show on our network. That's Paul Rook. Hello, Paul.
Good evening, Irene. How are you?
Hiya. Well, listen, Paul, you are my hero. You're my hero because you are working in the, with the COVID business for the St. John's Ambulance. And I want to tell everybody, he's a hero, everybody. He really is a hero.
Oh.
But he is also one of my radio hosts. So, plus, he's also on the management team.
I am, yeah, for my sins.
Yes, so even though I may own everything, I still can get told off by Paul.
Absolutely, every day. Horrendous.
Yeah, Paul, why don't you tell the listeners about your show?
Okay, well, our show, or my show, is the Paranormal Concept Show. I do the show with two other hosts, Kerry Greenaway and Richard Clements, and it goes out on a Tuesday. And yeah, it's just we take concepts and discuss them, and you know, work around the concept and see what other offshoots appear. And we're always going off topic. Yeah, so that's sort of what we do. I mean, the last show that went out was actually The Crown on social streaming, and we thought, because we were big fans of the TV show The Crown, we would actually look at some of the locations.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we had a look at the locations of The Crown, and yeah, it was very interesting. And we're doing part 2, I believe. We're doing that one in 2 parts.
Okay, so the locations of The Crown, then, many of these locations are haunted, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, for example, the location they used for Prince Charles's school when he they sent
that was St Andrews, wasn't it?
No, they I don't know where he went to school.
Oh,
but no, in the programme they used Woodchester Mansion.
Oh, he didn't go to school at Woodchester Mansion.
No, he didn't go to school.
He did go,
no,
I think
they used the same building as instead of the real one.
Okay, yeah.
So we're talking about all those.
Yeah, I think he went to St Andrews, but up where the golf course is.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Bonnie, Scotland.
I'd have to look at Kerry's research that she done for me.
Yeah, I honestly can't see them allowing in a television crew anyway. So
no, that's it. Some of the place they use for like Windsor Castle, we looked at as well. You know, and yeah, it was quite an interesting show actually. So if anyone gets a chance, definitely go and have a listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, we do all sorts of subjects, and we talk lots of common sense.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is a message for Charlie. Charlie, lad, you come to your place down here in Wales quite often, which is just down the road from me, so why don't you just pop in and have a cup of tea? Okay.
Well, Kerry's listening, and she actually just said he went to Goldstone. Goldstone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, she just messaged me on Facebook and was like, yeah, there you go.
Well, I used to see the royal family quite a lot, so you know, on my travels. But I've never had one in the house actually for a cup of tea yet. And Charlie and Camilla, you're both welcome.
Yeah.
You know, Earl Grey in the afternoon.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Right, so let's get on and introduce our guests. Our guests are Don and Laynee from Chicago, I believe.
Yes,
and
we are.
Yes, and you run Spectrewaves.
Yes, we do.
Can you tell us a little bit about Spectrewaves?
Sure, I'd be happy to do. Go over what we do. Obviously, one of the big driving factors for us is that we investigate historical properties that are purported to be haunted. Mm-hmm. We also do some private investigations, and of course, for everybody listening, we don't charge for any of our services. This is more of a passion than it is anything else. And
you've got a lovely American voice. I'm not,
Thank you. That's attributed.
I'm not flirting with you because I'm seeing what Laynee looks like.
Yeah, right. There you go.
She's beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
You are, darling. You're a really beautiful looking girl. You know, but his voice, God. The only other time I've ever heard a voice like that, so sexy, and I mean it so sexy, was a Frenchman that I used to work with.
Really?
Yeah, he had this beautiful deep voice like you, but with a French accent with it. And
oh wow, that must have been dreamy for you.
Oh, it was dreamy because I was younger then too as well. So yeah, it was dreamy.
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I had to get that one in. So carry on.
Okay, fine. Is that so? We've been doing this now for a little bit over 5 years.
Yeah.
And kind of the background with us is that Laynee and I had met in 2006, and one of our passions was Halloween. So we continue to dress up for Halloween. That's just a side note, is that just happens to be a passion of ours, and we both enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So because of that, we actually started having conversations when we first met and talked about the paranormal.
Okay, so Laynee, he pulled you, did he?
Yes.
Okay. And so you started talking about the paranormal, and you both realised you had the same interest in common, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And so once that started, it was right around the time that the shows in the United States started to get popular.
Yeah.
Like Ghost Hunters, and then followed, closely by Ghost Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading online somebody that was a producer of Ghost Hunters that stated that stuff that they had filmed or evidence that they had captured was fake. And so Laynee and I got to talking about it, and I said, well, we both have an interest in this, and we both had experiences, early on in our lives. And I said, what do you think? You want to just go buy like some of the equipment and just go to a purported location and see if it really is the truth. No faking it, no anything. Let's just see if we can garnish evidence with using scientific equipment, with using a spirit box and with using a REM pod and infrared camera. And so we went and we did it, and we actually got an EVP on the spirit box, an intelligent EVP. And so that kind of kicked things off for us. And so, of course, that became super, super interesting.
Yeah.
And so we kept at it, and we kept investigating. We kept adding equipment, and we kept adding experiences. And and so now, 5.5, 6 years later.
You're still at it.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Laynee,
Yes.
They normally a fella would just ask you out for dinner, wouldn't they?
Right.
You know? But no, not this one. He asked you on a ghost hunt.
Right. Well, now we've been together, what is it, going on 15 years?
15 years,
15 years.
God.
Long time.
Yeah.
So we have something interesting to jump in here with, is that so at the early onset of us doing these ghost investigations, what ended up happening was Lainey got diagnosed with leukemia.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
And so it happened to be a rare form of leukemia, and so she was in the hospital, so obviously we had to postpone everything, and they didn't think she was going to make it.
That is correct. I start planning my funeral and my last wishes. And I remember them just saying, listen, you're going to have a couple of days left. What do you want at your funeral? And I just kept thinking, you know what, I'm not going to die. I'm going to beat this. And just having that powerful mindset. Well, of course, I did make it through. I'm in remission now for 6 years. The reason why we do bring that up is because after that, I think I hit the death plane, meaning I became much more sensitive with the paranormal. So when we're on these investigations, I'm able to pick what spot to go to. And every time I do, we normally get something on our equipment. And it's probably a couple pieces of our equipment that will capture something. Beforehand, I would pick some spots, but it was a hit or miss. But now it's almost like every single time I pick a spot in the place, we get evidence.
You get evidence.
And we just do it a little bit differently than some of the other people do. What we end up doing is that we just let somebody, like, let's say if it's the curator or whomever is letting us into the property, is that we just ask for generalities, and we try not to do a lot of research before we go to the property, so it doesn't influence us about what we're looking to get. So if we just kind of know that there's, some things that are purported to be, that there's noises upstairs, that's as far as we want to know. We don't want to know.
Yeah, you don't want to know whether Henry VIII is trotting around or anything like that.
Right. And so we take it from there. The one thing of research that we do prior to going to the location is that, we'll find out from a historical standpoint, or at least attempt to, who lived there, what they, when the property was developed, what was on that property prior to, because, in the U.S. especially.
Normally what we do over here is we do all that at the end of it all. We do the investigations first, go in there completely blank, do the investigation. Well, I did when I had a team. Used to go in there completely blank, get the evidence, then come back, and then it would be all the research, Right,
and then and so that it doesn't influence you during it. And I know a lot of the teams in the U.S., they'll do an awful lot of research, but it influences them into what they ultimately seemingly think that they capture. So we've done it. We've kind of done it that way, for the entire time that we've done things, and of course, we've garnished what we believe is really kind of Class A, some Class A evidence.
Yeah. Okay, Paul?
Yeah, so obviously, like, you use paranormal equipment. What have you got anything that's different to other investigators that you use?
No, is that one thing that we use that recently has kind of reared its head, that wasn't really working for us when we first initially bought it, was a static pod, basically. Is that it detects static electricity, similar to when you were to rub a balloon on your head.
Yeah.
And so that piece of equipment, you don't see it used very often on a lot of shows. Like, most of the time it's just infrared, or they'll use EMF to detect, and we're a big proponent of using the Xbox 360, or what's commonly referred to as the SLS camera.
Is this like a radiation detector?
Oh, that SLS camera? or the static one?
No, the static thing.
No, it really isn't. It's just it's actually an electromagnetic, similar to an EMF meter, except for the fact that the only way that it actually goes off is like even if you were to test it, for example, Irene, the only way that it goes off is that if you rubbed it on your skin, and then you would see the lights light up, right? Because you're causing electrostatic, right? Yeah. And that's what it detects. So it's different. Like you could have an EMF meter next to that static pod, and the pod won't go off, but the meter might be registering, 2.0 or 6.0 or whatever. And then conversely, you could have the static meter go off or the static pod go off, the lights light up, and basically have an EMF reading of 0.
Yeah.
So we've at first we didn't really rely heavily on it because it doesn't make any noise when it goes off, so you have to kind of pay attention to it. And ironically is that you can see at least a few of the lights through IR. So when it does light up, it lights up bright and you can see it, and that focuses your attention over there on it. And then a lot of the times if you're dealing with an intelligent spirit, you can ask them to step away from it. Mm-hmm. And again, just like it would be for a REM pod, it stops, and then if you ask them to re-engage, they'll go back and they'll re-engage.
I see. So, yeah.
Have you ever come up, like when it's gone off before, have you ever come up to a logical conclusion for that?
A lot of the times, the benefit of it is, I can say yes and no, but essentially some of these properties that we were in had no power.
Okay.
So, there's a less likelihood of that being interactive, is that because there was really nothing there to drive it. There's nothing that you could create. There's no heat. There's no electricity. There's nothing really to engage that static electricity that would form around that pod.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, they don't use them very often over here. I've never really heard of that. I've heard of radiation detectors, ion counters, and things like that, but
static, yeah. And like I said, when we first got it, we were kind of unsure about it. Mm-hmm. But I have to say is that in subsequent investigations, we would leave it and it would start lighting up for no reason.
So it's proved itself a handy tool then.
Yeah, absolutely, to detect something that's in that area that normally wouldn't be engaged at all.
Yeah. So what happens then after that? Does Laynee go in to that particular area and start?
I have to tell you,
stand up on end, girl.
I have to tell you this: Laynee loves the SLS camera.
Yeah,
she is a big proponent of the SLS camera, and so she controls everything that you see on our site, on our YouTube channel. And of course, we only post evidence. You don't have to watch us for 2 hours walking around to get 10 seconds of payoff. Is that anything that we post? Laynee is always on top of it with that 360, and so she absolutely loves it. And one of the things that I think is so great about Laynee, not only is she beautiful, she paid me $10 to say that. No, not only is she beautiful, but she'll walk away from me in an investigation. We'll be, I'll be on the first floor, and the next thing I know, she's in the basement, and she'll go down there by herself. So,
well, that's the type of girl I like, because I'm like that. I would go and sit in a haunted building on my own all night because nothing worries me anyway. But
you're more scared of the living than you are the dead, or whatever it is, another dimension, or what is it? And that's the answer we're trying to figure out. What happens once we die? Why is there so much energy that just stays around? And with the Connect camera, we have debunked that maybe a mirror will make a stick figure, a chair will go ahead and make a stick figure. So the evidence we capture, we do not fake anything. we try to debunk why we got it.
Yeah.
And on our YouTube, you will see that what we captured is actual real evidence.
Well, that's one thing I like about you. You know, and the fact that you do share your evidence to try and educate other people.
Definitely, yes. I mean, there's got to be a reason why they kept me around. I mean, death has always been at my doorstep. Even when I was little, when I was first born, I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. And right away I came out and I was not breathing, so they had to revive me. So this is like the second shot now that I have, and it seems like I'm getting closer and closer to tapping in to see what is it, different dimension, why, how can we tap into the paranormal and have them communicate with us?
I know. Just what about? So you only do communication? You're not a medium or anything, no?
No, I'm not.
No, so it's all communication through the tools that you've got at hand.
Right.
Yeah. But do you ever stand there and ask physically for something?
You know, I haven't really tapped in that much, and I do want to. It's quite interesting, though, when we are communicating and you get a stick figure on the Connect. And we had one time where the stick figure was hugging Don, and we asked them to wave to us, and they were waving to us. God, what else?
Well, and consequently is that one stick figure, it turned out that there was a little boy who had been shot in the head.
Yeah, that's right.
In this property. We found that out obviously later, but and this stick figure that appeared in a row of all these chairs, of course you can go to our YouTube channel and take a look at that, is that in all these chairs, I went to the chair, Lainey had to guide me where I was going. You could feel I could feel a slight different temperature differential, and we weren't even ready. We were just setting up to actually get the investigation started. And we went there, and so as she guided me to the chair, this little figure decided to climb up on me and hug me. So, and we've had some other things that have happened. One other thing that happened with a little boy's voice. We were at this castle that is in Missouri.
Oh, no, you had any castles out there?
Loveland Castle.
Yeah, Loveland Castle. It was a gentleman who built it in the 1920s.
Oh,
and he built it by hand. And he had served in World War I as a medic. And so he called it La Roche. After a French
try the
castle.
Try the French accent. Come on.
I don't know. That's as good as it gets. So he built this castle, and so as we were investigating the castle, of course we were the only two there, and he built it based off of a 10th century castle. He had built a princess tower as part of this castle. He wanted to make it as exacting as possible. And so they don't let the general public go up into the princess tower because it's really kind of dangerous. You have to go up a ladder and, and you have to push open the trap door and kind of get up there. And, if you're a rather big, robust person, you'd never get through that door. So we were on our way there. We had a static camera running in the dining room that was adjacent to where that princess tower was. And when I got back and started to review the static cam, much to my surprise and happiness, is there was a little boy's voice. And you can hear us in the background of the static cam talking about going up into the princess tower. And this little boy's voice said, "You're going to get in some trouble."
Oh, bless.
So at least he was looking out for us, so that was nice of him.
And at the same time, we did capture an orb while it was saying, "You're going to get in some trouble."
Yeah. So I think one of the best things that I'd love to share with you guys is there's one of the haunted mansions, per se, in the United States, and it happens to be just in downstate Illinois. And so it's in a community called Alton. And it's the Mick Pike Mansion. And we were fortunate enough.
Sorry, I thought you said the Nick Pope Mansion. I thought, where's Nick Pope get a mansion from?
Mick Pike, see?
Nick Pike.
Mick.
Oh,
MC.
Mick Pike.
Like, yeah.
Oh, I see. Interesting. So this is a mansion in Illinois, and obviously it's haunted. What did you get there?
And so what we ended up getting there was we did an investigation around the whole entire property. But one of the most interesting things, and I hope all your listeners will go and check this out because we do have it on YouTube. One of the interesting things are the lady who owns it, Sharon. She had told us before we started the investigation, she had said, 3 weeks ago, Ghost Adventures was here. And she said, I will never have them back. And she railed upon.
Well, you can't really blame her, can you?
No, and she said, because she really protects the spirits that she believes reside there. And she said, she goes, I can't believe that they were screaming at the top of their lungs at 3 o'clock in the morning.
My spiders?
Saying that there was demons. She goes,
demons.
There's no demons in this property. She said, there's just people who used to live here. And so she was really, really protective of it. And again, she railed upon, what they did during their investigation and whatnot. And that was pretty much the long and short of the conversation. So fast forward to about midnight, and we were in the foyer. We were doing a spirit box session when they have the original doors to the mansion, which are leaded glass. So they're opaque, and you can't see through the leaded glass. And Laynee turned to me and said,
do you see that? A red light and a white light. And he's like, no, I don't see it. I said, look it. We both ran out. We had equipment out there. So we were thinking maybe somebody was out there trying to, take the equipment?
Take the equipment. It was out on the porch. So
mess with the equipment.
So we left. We had a static camera running, and we left the door open. And we walked out onto the porch, and then the porch is about 5 stairs down to what the front lawn is. So we walk out there. Laynee's down on the lawn itself, and I'm at maybe like the second step of the porch. And all of a sudden we hear, with our own ears, with no scientific equipment, we hear.
So you picked up an AVP then, audio voice recording.
And the fortunate thing about this was because we ran out there because, this mansion doesn't reside in a farm.
Yeah.
It's in a normal neighborhood. There's houses around there. There's no farms around there. There are certainly no horses around there.
Yeah.
And so we were so excited that we both heard this. And fortunately, the camera was close enough to the door that it actually picked up the sounds that we heard. Is that so you hear us on camera referring to horses. It sounds like horses on cobblestone.
Yeah.
Fast forward to Ghost Adventures finally posted their evidence in January. Now, we were there in August of 2018, and they posted their show about Mick Pike Mansion in January of 2019. So we watched the show just out of curiosity, just to see if they caught what we caught or if there was some compelling evidence, that we both had. And ironically, I was totally blown away. About 25 minutes into the show, now they didn't record it. They didn't have any audio, but they recorded Zach standing, and we know exactly where he was standing. He was standing by the fire pit in the front lawn, saying, "Do you hear that? It's horses. It's horses on cobble, almost identical."
Oh, they pinched it.
You think so? I don't know. I can't tell. I tried to,
you can't prove it, but there you go.
I can't prove it. No. Well, one thing I can tell you, though, is that Sharon didn't like Zach so much that she said she would never allow them back on her property. Yeah. So even if they looked at our evidence, they would have had to somehow get back to that front lawn where Zach was to be able to say this.
Or unless they already had footage of him on the front lawn and he just voiced over it.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
But And so the side note to this, though, is what we found was interesting. After we posted this evidence and we put it up there, one of the neighbors actually wrote us. Somebody we didn't know. They just, randomly wrote us back and said, "Listen, I just wanted to tell you is that this is the first time we've heard the recording of it. I've lived here 30 plus years, and we hear it every summer, and so we've just come to accept that." During the summer, you hear these horses. And she said, "I'm so happy that somebody else got to hear this besides us."
Yeah. Wow.
Very interesting. What's the best piece of evidence you think you've got previous?
I think, besides the Mick Pike evidence, I think there was one that we were at Crown Point Jail in Indiana. And we were in the juvenile hall up there, and we were trying to take static pictures. Now, we still had a spirit box going, and it was on the table, and it's the top floor of the old jail, where they haven't redone this jail or anything. It's just, half of the windows are broken, and it's, and it's just kind of an old, wide open area. Think of a big auditorium-style area with old bunk beds. That's kind of what it looks like. And so we were there and we were taking pictures, and I noticed that I was using my phone from time to time to take a picture, and we kept seeing streaks go past the camera lens. Like on a consistent, every time I snapped a picture, there was streaks. And so I mentioned that to Laynee, and then don't know what happened, but all hell broke loose. Right,
and that's when we heard something running up the stairs. Just boom, 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 boom. And at the same time the spirit box went off, it said, "What?" And then in the back we heard a big bang. All at the same time.
What do you mean a bang? Like something's fallen over or someone shot someone?
No, like somebody took a board and slammed it against the wall.
Very hard. And so we kind of backed into each other, and we're like, wow, that is so cool. And then we start taking pictures again.
Because God forbid you would never leave. We won't leave.
Right.
Have you gone back there since to see whether you can get it again?
We did. Is that we went back there, and Laynee, it wasn't up there. We couldn't recreate it. It wasn't. So it seemed like it was more intelligent than it was residual. But on the second floor, Laynee got her hair pulled.
That was in the
don't you hate that? I've had that done. I tell you what, when you've done all your slap on your face, all your makeup and your hair, and suddenly something pulls your hair.
It feels like static electricity, like what if you rub a balloon on your arm. That's what it felt like. And actually, on camera, you can see my hair kind of raising up a little bit. And at the same time that was happening, the Mel meter went off, and it spiked all the way.
Because we actually have a Mel meter, which is an EMF meter, but it also has a REM pod built into it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a dual-purpose thing, and that REM pod was screaming when it happened.
Yes.
Interesting.
So Sorry, Paul. Go on.
No, I was just saying it was interesting. Did you ever find any logical explanations for some of the stuff that you've picked up there?
No. Is that I can say that honestly? Is that I think it was a tried and true experience.
Yeah.
Is that the lady who runs it for the Historical Society? These jails that are in more rural areas of the United States, especially in Indiana. Indiana, up until like the late 1970s, they had a rule that the county sheriff, had to live in the jail. So essentially, the front part of these old jails are a house connected to the jail.
Yep.
And so she was in, we've come to know her now, Sandy, but she has let us in. When she lets us in, she basically stays in the front parlor, which is not. It's only connected to the back jail via a hallway and a door. And so, and I can guarantee you is that they've picked up a lot of things there, and that was one of the reasons why. Ultimately we found that out, but that was one of the reasons why we went there, to actually go and investigate. And I have to say, it was probably, I mean, we've investigated some other jails and stuff, but this is always a fun, lively place to go investigate, I have to say.
Yeah, brilliant. Listen, I'm going to do something I don't normally do, but I want to bring Kerry in on this. I want to bring Kerry into the show. Kerry Greenaway, who is at the moment producing the show.
I'm with you.
Okay, Kerry, if you've got any questions or you want to ask anything, please feel free to do it. Okay?
Yeah, we'll do.
I don't like you sitting there in that room on your own.
I was listening. I was enjoying what was being said.
Oh, okay. No, you join in on the show, you know. There's the more the merrier. But one thing I want to ask, Don or Laynee, Spring Lake Cemetery. Now, cemeteries, people think, cemeteries are haunted. There's always a ghost in the cemetery. But it's not always so. Most of the cemeteries are quite peaceful, and it's very rare to find a cemetery that's really haunted, unless it's a Highgate over here or something like that. So, what happened at Spring Lake Cemetery? Did you pick up anything? Did you get any evidence whatsoever? At
Spring Lake, I will say, is that ironically, we did capture some Xbox activity by the grave. By a gravestone itself, and there's purported things that that they talk about with this preacher's grave, that people have experienced different things at this preacher's grave, and so ironically, we had run into another investigator. We didn't go there with him. We had run into him there, and I forgot our SB11 spirit box for this investigation. So fortunately, he had one, and so just as it started to rain, we went to the back of the cemetery to this purported grave where people hear this preacher, and was able to communicate, and it was an intelligent communication. So, but that's about it. And you're totally right about that. It's very, very rare. We try not to investigate a lot of cemeteries because, you know, pardon the pun, but it's dead. You know. Oh, you are naughty. You really are naughty. And if I could say that with a French accent, you would be much happier. Oh, you're such a sweetie. Is that but yeah, and we happen to live not too far away from really, like, in the U.S. especially. I mean, it's referred to in all kind of books about hauntings, right? Is that it's supposed to be the most haunted cemetery in the United States, or one of the most haunted cemeteries, and we live right by Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Midlothian, Illinois. Yeah, we're literally, like, you know, maybe a half a mile away from it. And we've gone there on different occasions. Of course, you can't go there at night like you can with Spring Lake, but you'll get arrested otherwise. So never wanted to bail myself out with ghost hunting equipment on me. So we go there at dusk. That's about the best that you can do. And usually, I had an experience back in the 80s before I knew Laynee that I took a Polaroid camera, and there's a headstone there that actually one side is finished and one side is unfinished. No one knows why, but it was never finished. So I had taken pictures, Polaroid pictures, and I cannot find this Polaroid picture anymore, but it was the 3 consecutive pictures that I took. Nothing was there, and then there was a mist. A mist, yeah. And at the time, a full mist that encompassed the entire headstone. So from time to time, Laynee and I, especially if we have new equipment, we'll take it there just to see, just to have someplace to go, you know, and you don't have to pay for it, so we just go. And so we were testing out some new equipment and some new recording equipment, and we were walking around the cemetery, and we were getting ready to pack it up and go home. And so I was being sarcastic, and I said, I go, is there anybody here? I was getting frustrated. I was like, is there anybody here? We'd play it back, nothing. We wouldn't hear anything. Does anybody want to communicate with us? Nothing. We weren't getting anything. Then finally, I said, "Does anybody want to come out and play? Anybody want to play with us?"
That's a dangerous word. That's a dangerous thing to say in this country.
Well, obviously, they're so used to people going there and investigating. I think, if there's any entity there, is that, and so maybe it intrigued them. And so when I reviewed the evidence, all I hear is, "No." Okay. So that was it. That was our big experience with the most haunted purported cemetery in the United States. So, and we've tried. We've gone to a cemetery in Elgin a few times, and the only thing is that you will notice on we use it as a thumbnail picture on one of our Facebook accounts. We had a full spectrum camera, and we took a picture through a crack in a mausoleum window, and there's a mist flowing in through the back window, and I can guarantee you there was no mist there when I took the picture. So,
yeah, I love the misty pictures.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting, and I mean, and obviously, just like for everyone who listens, right, and that wants to do their own little investigations and stuff, is that it's kind of a known commodity in the paranormal community that you take 3 pictures, right? You try to take them as static and straight as you can from each area that you're taking the pictures, because you may find an anomaly on one of those pictures verified by the other 2 pictures not having the anomaly.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a mist in this house once. I remember my husband coming into the kitchen saying, "Did you see that? There's a bloody mist gone through the living room." And I just caught it as it was going through into the wall. This house is absolutely well haunted. He was doing some work in the old parlour the other day, and because we're turning it into another office, and he was out there doing some plastering or something, and I was on the other side of the house, with my head stuck in the computer writing one of my books. And he came through and he said, "Oh," he said, "that's where you are." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I've just had a woman say, Brian, twice to him."
Oh, wow.
But that's not the first time he's had an AVP. He was out there once at the back door, because I've got 2 back doors. He was at one of the back doors letting the dogs in the garden, and a man came right up to his ear, a man's voice, and said, "You pig." And he come running. No, it wasn't nice, was it? He come running into me and said, "I've just been called a bloody pig."
See, that's why I'm envious. Is that one of our goals, one of Laynee and myself's goals? We've gone across the United States. We've gone to different states and stuff and investigated. But we really, really, you guys are so steeped in history in the UK. We would love to come.
Yeah, well, you come. You can definitely come to my house. I've invited everybody to my house from America. I think you can definitely come here. I've got room for you to stay. But this is a very haunted house. I've never known a house as haunted as this one. And you're welcome, like I said. But
I think it's different, though, isn't it? There's a difference between, although we've got like a fantastic history in the UK,
it doesn't worry us, does it?
No, but America's got a fantastic history in their own right as well. And I think we're both sides of the pond are a little envious of each other, because you've got some locations in America that are absolutely phenomenal in the same way as, so our country's got some as well. But we haven't got access to a lot of those locations that you would all want to get into. But you do seem to be able to get into more in America. It's just that thing, isn't it, about the history side of it. We've both got a lot to offer in regards to that.
Is that, well, you have, and that's the interesting thing, and it's become a little bit touristy here, I got to say, is that with the advent of things like ghost hunters and ghost adventures on TV, and you see, because in Europe, and you guys know this as, just growing up in Europe, right? I mean, is that it's an accepted thing about entities and ghosts and spirits, and it's kind of accepted in your culture. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, you know, our relationship, I suppose you would say, definitely goes back a lot further because, you know, when you look at our roots, it's all based in working with, like, the elementals and things like that and, you know, invoking gods and goddesses and stuff like that, which you have as well, but you had it from the Native American side. They were very spiritually connected to their environment, so...
Well, but I will say this, though, is that as a population... you know, it's not as accepted. Like, you know, I know in my day job, right? I mean, we have an office in London, so you know, I talk to those folks, you know, at least a couple times a week, and over the course of time, they know I investigate, and you know, so they'll bring stories to me, but it's more accepting. I think that's really what I'm trying to get at. Is in the U.S., you know, you'll get eye rolls a lot. If you say, yeah, well, you know, what do you do as a hobby? You know, some people are like, well, you know, I like watching NASCAR, and I like watching golf, and I like watching, you know, American football. See, notice I said American football, and I didn't just say football. Okay, I don't want to alienate you guys. And everybody, you know, that's fine, right? The minute that you say you investigate the paranormal, you'll get at least 2 or 3 people to eye roll, but I guarantee you this, anybody who I've ever told that to, whether it be on a Zoom call, and I was fortunate enough to, when we opened up the office in London, I went there by myself. Unfortunately, Lainey didn't go with me, is that, and, you know, when I went, I mean, it's just an accepted thing, you know, but, you know, and getting back to the fact that the United States is kind of touristy when it comes to these haunted locations, right? Because these, you know, because these TV shows have brought it to the forefront. So then everybody becomes, you know, who's got any kind of interest in it, right? They don't take it totally serious, and they take it like a tour, you know, like you know, so they have these like haunted tours throughout the whole United States. And, you know, and so some of the people who own these properties, they're like, oh, okay, I can make some money off of this.
Well, we have this in the UK too, because like every old pub is like the most haunted pub in the UK, and we have a plethora of like ghost tours and ghost walks. And we just on our research for our latest show, one of the locations we looked at, we couldn't find any spiritual ghost stories, but we could find hundreds of links to the ghost walk. You know what I mean? So it was like, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating sometimes. So I think it's a common problem in both sides of the pond, to be fair.
Well, that's good, you know, is that, but, you know, and it does. One thing I will say, though, it does open us up to be able to have a plethora of places to go investigate. Yeah. You know, it makes it easier, you know, instead of hopping a chain link fence and, you know, and getting caught in a basement, right, Lanes?
That is true.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that. No. I'm too old. I'm too old to be hopping chain link fences and having to go to jail.
I think it's funny when they put a disclaimer on those websites. You won't guarantee to see a ghost. I think that's quite funny.
Yeah. I have to, though, because
so
if don't ask for somebody on. Yeah,
don't ask for your money back.
No refunds.
Yeah, no refunds if you don't capture anything. It's fine. Lainey, I'd like to go back to something you spoke about at the beginning of the show, which was the horrible situation you went through, but then you felt that you had heightened psychic abilities after that experience. So how does that happen for you? Do you hear things, or do you just sense things, or how does that happen for you?
You know, it's more, if I really tap into it, it's more sensing something. Like on investigations, you know, I really try to tap in to what's going on. And there was a time at Fowler Theater. I really wanted to tap in because I really couldn't find a lot about the place, or the owner really wouldn't tell us anything. So we go behind the stage, and I got this very sad feeling that someone hung themselves. They were very depressed. I go ahead and I talk to Dwight. He was one of the volunteers, kind of runs the place at Fowler Theater. And I said, listen, did someone ever hang themselves behind the curtains on stage? And he looked at me, and his mouth just dropped. And he's like, wow, how did you know that? And I told him I just got this really sad, depressed feeling that someone hung themselves. And he's like, yeah, but that is kept so quiet. And the excitement that I felt just knowing that I can tap into that was amazing. So more and more on these investigations, I just try so hard to tap into what's going on and what I can feel. And it's amazing. I just wonder how far I can go. And just having the corroborating evidence when the scientific equipment goes off, and I feel that something's in the room and the REM pod is going off and numbers on the millimeter are spiking up, or we're getting a connect figure on the Xbox. And just really, really cool. And I just...
and what's funny is that I'll jump in here for a second because, they're sick of listening to me talk. But
of course they are. He doesn't stop.
I know, right? It's an incessant...
It's the Don Show.
Yeah, it's the Don Show. Is that one thing I will say, though, is that, prior to Lainey's sickness, is that on the investigations that we went to, I would make suggestions, right, because I don't shut up. So I'd always make suggestions about where we were going, and and so Lainey would just go with me, and
well, I would point out spots, and you'd be like, "No, let's go over here." And I'm like, "Okay, fine, let's go over there."
See, she's a nice girl. Is that,
you should always listen to your women; they're usually right, isn't that right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Well, so after this incident at the Fowler Theater, I was blown away when she brought it up. She didn't mention it to me. She didn't say a word to me. When we went out there to talk to Dwight, and she brought it up, I was just as shocked as Dwight was. And I can tell you this honestly, from that point on, I shut up. I let her tell me where to go, and that's where I go. And that's what all you women like to do, right?
Well,
just be listened to.
Yeah, and we're right. You should listen to us.
That's right. So now I definitely listen to her when we're on investigations. I follow her no matter where she tells me that we have to go, and that's where we go. And usually, and it's right. And usually we end up garnishing, some really good evidence.
So have you thought about progressing that particular side of yourself? Our Paul Rook has, I challenged him recently because he says he's as psychic as a dead stick. We call him the blocker on investigations. But so I challenged him to actually go on to start a spiritual journey, didn't I, Paul?
Yes, you did. It is very interesting, actually. Interesting experiment. Definitely worth doing.
And it was basically starting off through psychic workshops and stuff like that, meditations. Have you thought about developing that ability?
Yes, I'm a very big advocate with yoga and the meditation and all that goes along with that. And, especially the more and more that we're getting evidence every time I do tap into it. A quite interesting story. We were at Warsaw Jail in Warsaw, Indiana, and we were upstairs where all the archive books were. I turned it down. I go, "Can you take a couple pictures of me really quick?" And he's like, "What? Why?" And I said, No, just take a couple pictures. Sure enough, later on, after I looked at those pictures, I saw a double image of me. This is quite creepy because of the fact that the image above me wasn't really looking like me, and half the face was shot off. We did find out later on that the woman and husband that lived there, the husband shot the wife with a shotgun on the same side of the face that was blown off in the picture. And the shirt she had on was a white collar. I had a tan collar on. And it was a completely different shirt. And you can go ahead and see that on the website that we have. The nose was different. The mouth was different. Of course, half the face was shot off. But I found that quite interesting, too. And
ironically about that is that the pictures that I took weren't with a DSL type camera. It was I was just using my phone, and usually it's kind of difficult on phones to get double exposures. It's not something that normally happens on a phone. Sometimes you can with mirrored cameras and stuff. That shutter will double click and you'll get a double exposure. But usually on a phone, because it's a digital shutter, you don't usually experience that, and that's what made it even odd. I don't think I could replicate that if I tried.
What did you take with a series of 6 photos that day?
Yeah.
It just gives you the goosebumps. It really does. And then you can actually see blood. The whole face is shot off. It was just so creepy. So whatever kind of feeling I got, or I'm so glad that I said something at that time, so Don can go ahead and we can capture something to share with everybody else. But as you say, I do want to tap more into it. And we're always looking for new places to go investigate. And just, it's like a high that I get on this now.
Just for everybody who's listening, give them a shout out for your website, because you've not done that yet. So where can they find you?
That is going to be www.spectrewaves.weebly, weebly.com, and Spectrewaves is spelled SPECTREWAVES. Spectrewaves.
And they can see that image on that, yeah?
Yeah, and you can see the image on that website, and you know, and what I alluded to earlier, you know, again, I'll just reiterate is that we only post evidence that we catch, and you know, sometimes it can be as long as 6 or 7 minutes, depending on the type of evidence that really comes through during that, and you can check our YouTube channel at any time. It's Spectrewaves, because I like to repeat myself. No, it's because obviously somebody else had Spectrewaves, right? So the only way that they would let us through is if I doubled it. So, but feel free, check out our evidence, you know, and we'd love to hear from everybody. If you look at something and you want to get a little bit more detailed into it and find out, you know, maybe some facts or circumstances that was involved with while we were getting that evidence, please feel free to contact us.
Or definitely, if there's like a location you find interesting, we'd love to learn about that location and try to get in there and investigate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don, remember before we finish the show to give off those addresses again?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Paul, did you want to say anything?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's loads of stuff that we could be asking. What about, out of all the places that you have actually gone to, is there any one that stands out for you and, you know, your favourite location, and maybe you've been there more than other locations?
Yeah, that's Stimson Hospital. You remember that, Don?
Oh, absolutely. That was last year.
Yeah, we were in...
right before the pandemic.
Yeah. And we were in the Dr. Stimson's old office, and we had the spirit box going, and we were talking, and all of a sudden we said, "What is your name?" It said Stimson, and that was quite interesting. And another thing that happened was the whole room shook on us, and this room was made of all concrete. I had the SLS Xbox Connect, and Don was filming. All of a sudden, we felt this big vibration, and the pole that I was holding on the SLS shook, and Don's camera shook, and then at the same time later, we reviewed the recording, we see a mist running right up the stairs.
And the odd thing about the mist is that it goes...
You can actually hear it.
You can actually hear a sound connected to the movement of the mist.
At the same time.
Right. Just really, really strange. And I got to say is that one of my favorite locations, you know, that we've gone to and we've talked about it already is the Crown Point Jail. There are a whole bunch of things that go on there, you know, small things, and we've been there a couple of times, and you know, and I know Sandy, you know, always invites us back, and we haven't been back there for a couple of years, but it's always fun to go there. You know, especially because they haven't really done anything to the jail, and all of the floors are accessible, so you don't have to climb ladders or anything. The stairs are still there, which is nice. I mean, we were just at a jail in Fowler, Indiana, actually, this past year, and
Old Benton Jail.
Yeah, Old Benton Jail.
Yeah,
and they actually had taken the stairs down for the second floor jail cells, so you have to actually climb a ladder, and I'm scared to death of heights. Is that you know, I'm not scared of ghosts, I'm scared of heights, and so
typical, isn't
it? Is that, and so getting down off that ladder, boy, you know, is that that was something else, I gotta say. Is that, but I went up there nonetheless, right?
But unfortunately, we didn't capture anything up there. So.
No, we didn't, right? I mean, you know, but.
I'm sure the spirits were just laughing at the fact that you were there.
Oh, if you would have seen me, I was like a 2-year-old trying to go down the ladder.
And of course, I had to like say, "Come on, Don, hurry up."
Yeah, Lainey's like right down the ladder. She's like, you know.
Well, it's quite interesting. We got a 10-foot Christmas tree this year, so I made him put the star on.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how that went in the front room with me putting a star on a 10-foot Christmas tree.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. Right, so you two, Sandwich Opera House. Now, I love opera. You know, I absolutely adore opera, so I've got to know this story.
With Sandwich, it's kind of funny because they had just opened that up to investigations.
That's a weird name to call an opera house, isn't it? Sandwich?
Well, because it's Sandwich, Illinois.
Yeah.
So yeah, is that a
weird name to call a town too?
Well, you know what? They kind of ran out of stuff in the U.S. Is that
more than likely, if the truth's known, we've got a place called Sandwich over here, and you've nicked it from us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Is,
well, most of the towns that are named here, if it's not named after some guy who who paid for the town, it's all stolen stuff from Europe.
That's right.
Right? You know?
But we have a Sandwich. It's next to a town called Ham as well.
Oh, no, not Ham perfect. Sandwich.
Yes, we get the ham sandwich.
That's totally perfect.
That'll make you hungry.
Yeah, right. Is that so? At Sandwich was actually one of the first times that we that the static device actually started to interact with us. Like, we had used it on previous investigations and never really got much. But when we were on stage there, that was really the first time that I can honestly say that, we were in the auditorium, Laynee was on the stage, I was down by the seats, and the next thing I know, that vortex, it's called a vortex. And it's actually, ironically, it's made by a gentleman, I believe it is, isn't it, Lanes? They're out of the UK, right?
Oh, yeah, was that...
the vortex.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. That's not Infrared, is it?
I don't know. You bought it. I didn't buy it. And by the way, the vortex is pink. So I just wanted to let you know.
I'm trying to get a lot of our equipment pink. Love that color option. Definitely.
Pink vortex, yep. They make it in a whole bunch of different colors, and of course we have a pink one.
We have a pink IR light.
Yeah, we have a pink IR light. She has, a pink mono tripod.
So you're into pink. You're a pink girl.
Yes. Well, they make everything for the guys. Everything's black, so it's nice that they're aiming the equipment towards us a little bit with the pink. I find that quite different. I do.
In the Victorian period, pink used to be a boy's colour.
See, that's something I didn't know that.
Yeah. Wow. During the Victorian period, it was pink was a boy's colour, blues was a girl's, but because I believe one of the dolls, I think Cindy or Barbie or something, they took pink for girls, so we switched.
And that's what changed it around, huh?
Yeah, that's
wow. It. Yeah. So, and we were, like I said, we were on the stage at somebody's bringing us lunch. No, I'm just kidding. So we had got some interaction and meaningful interaction on stage with that vortex, with the static device, and it absolutely lit up for us, and we were we were super happy, and that's what made us start to focus, because we used to leave the static cam in a room with that vortex, right? And then we'd go back and review, and we would never really see anything, except every once in a while a minor little interaction, and that would be it. But this was really what hit home for that particular device, and that's what makes that place so telling. Is that I don't think we really got much of anything else, though, at the that I can remember, anyways, at the Sandwich Opera House. We've been to a couple of opera houses before. We were at the Egyptian Theater, which brings me to an ironic thing at the Egyptian Theater. It's back around the vaudevillian times, which is really around the turn of the century for the U.S., this particular theater in DeKalb, Illinois, basically hosted vaudevillian shows. They did plays, musicals. Now it's a movie theater, but through the course of that time throughout the U.S., there was a block of these theaters that were all Egyptian-themed theaters. Yeah. And there's only 2 left now. All the rest of them have been torn down and gutted and long since to the dust heap. And so we were fortunate that one of these 2 actually still exist in Illinois. So we went there to investigate, and we actually had an interaction with the Spirit Box on the stage, asking questions. And they had talked about, we've come to find out that they had talked about this lady in green that has been reported being in the seats, and they don't really know who she is. They don't have any evidence of anybody ever dying there, who fit her description. But so I was conducting a Spirit Box session on the stage and asked a question, and said, is the lady in green here? Because that's all we knew at the time was about the lady in green. That was it. So I got an interaction, and I heard that a female voice talk back to us on the Spirit Box, and I said, did you perform here? Why are you here? Were you a singer? And on the Spirit Box, it comes back and it says singer. Now, if you guys, and I'm sure all the people that that probably follow the show and kind of are familiar with what a Spirit Box is. It's really it can be an AM or FM or both device that sweeps the entire spectrum of the FM spectrum or the AM spectrum, or simultaneously. In this case, we always use an SB11, which has 2 radios in it, and it sweeps forward and backwards. You can do FM or AM simultaneously. So in order to get any kind of a vowel sound, consonant sounds, it has to go over that entire spectrum to almost, form a word. And to hear something, like singer in a female voice, and especially something that's relevant there, was, made us really excited. Well, later on in the investigation, Laynee was up on stage, and go ahead.
Refresh my memory on that one really quick.
The book page.
Oh, with the book page.
Yeah.
Okay. That's when I was on stage by myself. You were down in the audience, right, weren't you?
Yep.
And you still didn't hear it until you reviewed the audio.
Right.
If that's correct.
Yep.
I kept hearing pages, like turning, kind of like if someone was reading a script. And it was very, very vague. And then the more everything was quiet, you can hear it getting louder and louder. Then all of a sudden, you just hear like a book slam on the floor. And at first, I'm like, Don, do you hear that? I hear like pages turning. He's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But you did hear when the book hit the floor.
Slammed. And so, ironically, we had followed up with the director of the theater and came to find out that that was a known thing that's happened to a lot of investigative groups, is that they hear pages on a book being turned. Now, we didn't know that at the time, but we reviewed the evidence with him live there. We showed him what it was, and he was absolutely blown away. He said, nobody's really caught it. People have talked about it, but they've never caught it. So we've been fortunate enough to actually catch some things.
Yeah, well, how it built up, too, with the pages turning very, very faintly, and then it got louder and louder. Yeah. And just the bang on the floor was just absolutely awesome.
Fantastic.
The other one that's what I want to talk about was the house we went to with the old man passing away. We were there like 2 weeks later.
Oh, that private investigation.
And we were using that music box and the Connect.
What was it? It's a private house?
This was a private house in DuPage County, Illinois. And the old man, he passed away in his bed. I think he had many health problems, but he went peacefully, thank goodness. And the family called us out, and we investigated. They want to go investigate in that room. Now, the family was there. They want to watch. And we had the Pier 4 Force, which is a music box. What it does is if you walk in front of it, it sets off this creepy music that plays. So we thought it was quite interesting because they were big ballroom dancers, and why not set that up on their dresser? along with we had the Connect SLS Xbox cam.
Yeah.
And we're recording, and all of a sudden I see a figure that sits right next to the music box.
Uh-huh.
And you can see it trying to set off the music box with its hand. And the music box is starting to go off. And you literally see a figure sitting on the dresser playing with the music box. Shortly after that, you see the figure jump off and fly away. And how it flew away was the door, it went underneath so it wouldn't hit its head. I thought that was quite interesting. So,
oh my God,
it's the weirdest thing. If I'm explaining that right,
no, you are explaining it right. Yeah. It almost looked like instead of just like going out the opening,
like through the wall,
like it still thought it had a physical body,
where it had to dunk down and not hit its head.
Right.
It was just amazing. And then it was on demand, on call. We would ask, can you please set off the music box? And it did.
Yeah.
We love that music box, especially because the creep factor of the music that comes out of it when it gets set off.
Well, it finally got kind of annoying when you're like, okay, stop.
Yeah, stop already. Stop going in front of it. Because it would be, it wouldn't play, right? And it doesn't really, it's not a motion sensor per se.
Yeah.
It actually sends out an ultrasonic signal, so you don't have a receiver transmitter kind of a setup. It just sends out an ultrasonic blast. That if that ultrasonic blast is interrupted at any point, that's what turns the music box on. So unless you're really right in front of it, like we've tried it, we've debunked some things like through the course of our career, right, of doing this. Like, for example, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, is that with a REM pod, if you have walkie-talkies and you happen to be dialed into the correct channel and you're in close proximity to a REM pod, you can set the REM pod off without touching the REM pod. And the longer that you key that walkie-talkie, the hotter that REM pod becomes. Is that so? We know that from the standpoint of debunking things, right? And but with this thing, nothing sets it off unless you physically break that ultrasonic stream. Nothing sets it off. Lights, reflections, nothing sets it off. Mm-hmm. So we really, that's one of our new things in our new toolkit that we like.
Along with the obelisk, too. I love the obelisk, and it's a phonetic dictionary. The one thing about it, though, is in some of the shows, they will turn it on, and then right away they always get 2 words. Now, that is actually not true. They always think it's evidence, but it's not evidence. It always says 2 words once you turn the obelisk on.
So we always laugh when we're watching,
Okay, what's the 2 words?
Well, it doesn't. They're random words.
Oh, hello.
But when you turn it on, right, it goes through an internal scan. And so when it goes through the internal scan, it always says 2 words. And sometimes, we watch these shows and these guys are like, oh, it said, it said bold killer, and they show it on camera, right? Well, that's the thing, just going through its paces, because you see them just turn it on, and then they're like, "Oh, we got 2 words."
And of course, they're holding it, and you're not really supposed to hold it because it's picking up the energy, and they're setting it off to go off.
Right. So it's always funny to us is that so you'll see us use that obelisk from time to time, but we usually put it on a table, and we never put the first 2 words up. We always discount the first 2 words because we know that it usually goes through this cycle and it creates those 2 words. Is that now, ironically, we were just at a very, very famous house that took us like 3 years to get into this house.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Is that it's one of the few documented cases.
Is this the Roth House?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
In Illinois, yeah? Yeah,
and that's one of the most documented cases, or one of the few documented cases of someone being
not possessed.
Well, sort of possessed, yeah.
But it wasn't demonic.
It wasn't demonic. Yeah, it wasn't by a demonic quote unquote entity. It was by another little girl that possessed the other girl.
Mm.
And
what do you mean? There was 2 child spirits.
Well,
there was
what
one
it was,
child spirit
one
and one
child
living
spirit.
girl.
Right. And so what it was that they were neighbors. And Mary Roth was diagnosed with what they believed to be schizophrenia. And back in the 1800s, of course, in the U.S., and I'm sure it was the same way in the U.K., is that when they institutionalized someone, right, they were subject to a whole bunch of things, right, a whole bunch of like experimental tests and that kind of thing, and just really abuse, things that, you know, that we wouldn't allow today but went on back then. Yeah. And the unfortunate part of it was she was 13 years old. And so they had institutionalized her, and they put her in an asylum that was a little bit of ways from Wasika, right? And so this story is known as the Wasika Wonder. And so she passed away in the institution, and her neighbor was a little girl who was an adolescent, actually. She was about 15 years old, and after Mary Roth had passed away, and I can never say this girl's name. I think it's Lucinda. It's really a...
Lucinda?
Maybe it's like Lucinda or Lucini. No, it's Lucini. That's what it is. I know it ends in an EY. Is that... so she one day went to her parents. This was after Mary Roth had passed away, and went to her parents and said, why am I here? I need to go home. And they're like, what are you talking about? You know, this is your home. No. I need to go home. I need to see my mom and dad. And so after they interrogated her for a little while, they came to find out that she believed that she was Mary Roth. And so they had gone to Mr. Roth, and they asked him, they said, listen, our daughter is displaying these kind of characteristics that you used to talk about happened to your daughter, and we're scared for her. We don't want to institutionalize her. And Mr. Roth, because he was so distraught about the fact that Mary had passed away in this asylum, said, no, you're not going to put her in an asylum. If she's thinking that she's Mary, have her come to the house. We will have her come to the house. So they brought their daughter to the house, and the daughter knew everybody in the family, was tested by psychologists or psychiatrists at the time and doctors at the time that would come to the house. This went on for basically a month and a half, and it turned out that she could even read books being blindfolded. They had tested her by blindfolding her and putting a book in front of her, and she could read verbatim what was on the page without being able to see. And so she knew family members. She knew history of the family. She knew where her room was. She had never really been in the house before. And when they brought her to the house, she immediately went up to Mary's room and said, this is my room.
Yeah, I know this case.
You know it, Carrie?
Yeah, I've read about this case.
And so as quickly as it started, the Roths allowed her to live there for a month and a half. And then, to compartmentalize this story, she woke up and she said, what am I doing here? Mm-hmm. I want to go back home, go back to my house. And that was it. That was the last time that she was possessed by Mary, at least what everyone believes. And as a side note, the lady ironically had moved to Texas in her adult life and lived into her 90s. Is that but again, one of just because of local sheriffs and local psychologists and psychiatrists and doctors that had gone and evaluated her through the course of this month and a half, and all of these different purported things that had happened during it, makes it a little bit more documentable than just saying, yeah, I saw this spirit that walked around the backyard.
Yeah, Colin Wilson wrote about it in his book Supernatural as part of one of the chapters. And it's actually really, really fascinating, that book. So if you get a chance, read it, because it's well worth reading.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
It covers a lot of cases, a lot of different areas, but that is one of the cases in there.
And I have to say, is that so? I mean, it was a 3-year plan for us to try to get into this place, and the gentleman who owns the house had stopped allowing people to come in, and we had contacted him before he stopped, and we just couldn't get a date together, and then he decided that he wasn't going to let anybody come in.
Well, unfortunately, because people would start coming in and the place started to get very dark, it started getting very demonic, and his life started switching to a really dark side, somewhere he didn't want to be. So he did close down the investigations, and that's one thing he won't allow, any kind of darkness or any
no Ouija boards, right? Yeah.
Nothing like that. And that was perfect for us because we don't deal with demonic spirits or anything like that. So we were very fortunate at the time he just opened it up. He reached out to us, and we were able to go in there. But behind, I guess, his back, people would just go on the Ouija board and do seances and try to do some evil stuff down in the basement. Even little kids he caught down there. He invited the neighbors over, or the neighbors wanted to come over. And
for a Halloween.
And they're downstairs playing with the Ouija board, trying to capture something or bring something back from the dead.
And we didn't feel, when we were in there, we didn't feel anything that was dark or oppressive.
No, it actually was very clean there. It was the feeling I got.
It wasn't like that place in Iowa, that Edinburgh Manor in Iowa, man. That was probably, we didn't really catch a lot of stuff at Edinburgh, but I will say that was, I don't know if it was the day that we were there, but that's probably one of the most spookiest places, at least not because of experience, but just because of atmosphere. It was an asylum in Iowa, and man, I got to tell you, is that we went into that basement, and is that it just felt super oppressive down there. I mean, it was really, really like dark. You could feel the darkness in there. That's
the one with the safe house I had on the side that had heat, and we would go there and take little breaks. Right. And remember when we walked back, we saw 3 dead flies. Mm-hmm. But previously, before that, the whole floor was swept, and there was no dead flies.
There was no dead flies. This was in the middle of winter. They would, we were there, and ironically, it ended up becoming an ice storm while we were still investigating, right?
Oh, that was a horrible drive.
That was a horrible drive, yeah. You don't ever want to do that, not in Iowa.
And what I want to ask you is, have you ever come across any poltergeist activity in any of these places?
Have not.
No, we have not.
No. None. We haven't, And what everybody says about poltergeist activity, right? Is that generally a lot of that can be brought back to someone creating it, right? Mm. Is that someone who's got an emotional?
No, I was just wondering when you went into any of the private homes or anything like that maybe you got poltergeist activity.
Yeah, no slamming, no anything, no. I mean, you'll hear occasional knocks and stuff, but nothing that, we're still waiting to capture one of those.
No, I really don't want to.
Want to come to my house then?
all round to Irene.
And I tell you, I'm not going through puberty either. So,
see, well, there you go. That's perfect.
Yeah. Neither's my old man.
Wow.
So, what do you two really, thinking about it, what do you think a ghost is made up from? Do you think it's pulsating energy, ectoplasm, magnetic fields, or what?
Really?
What makes a ghost?
Yeah, here's what I think. I think that, and I think Lainey shares this opinion, and I'll let her speak for, to that question. But what I really, really believe is that just like dogs can hear frequency, I believe in, because, we're made up, in a physical sense, right? We're made up of electromagnetic, electromagnetic things in our bodies, right? I mean, even though we're made up of water and stuff, right? I mean, it's and I really, really, truly believe that on this plane, you can call it dimensional, you can call it, but really on this frequency, right, is our physicality. And I think on a different frequency is where the spiritual realm resides. And I think it resides with us in tandem. And I think that that how we discover it or interact with it is, for the simplicity of dipping of that frequency. I really kind of believe that. And the more that we investigate, the more it seems more relevant to me.
Yeah.
It is that I think that that's really what it is. I think they're all around us, and I think they continue to be all around us, and what they envision as their surroundings intersect with our surroundings from time to time, and that's why
like a crossover.
able. Right, that's why we're able to see it and tangibly and in my own mind, right? I don't really have any, I can't really say, and none of us can really say what it really is, but the way that I perceive it is similar to dogs, right? Is that dogs can hear, they have a greater sense of smell, and they have a greater sense of the audible inference into our world. So, with a dog whistle, right, you can blow the whistle, and if you've ever blown a dog whistle, right, I mean, it's not perfectly silent, but it makes that frequency, and they hear it distinctly, and why is because their ears are set up to a different frequency, which brings me to animals being able to, and we've all heard stories, and maybe you've even had, an interaction where, one of your pets, whether it be a dog or a cat, starts to react to something that's in the room that you can't see and you haven't, felt or tangibly touched or anything.
Yeah, I get that all the time with my lot.
See, and so how do they do that? Is that if it wasn't a different frequency, just my opinion, of course, but if it wasn't a different frequency, like how would they be able to see that? If the frequency bends a little bit, and we all know that they're sensitive to something, right? So they, dogs especially have a poor, ability to see. They don't have enough cones in their eyes. They only see red and gray and black, with little spatterings of green, but they don't see colors. And so they're obviously relying on some other sense that takes their attention, that makes them focus on something. And I really truly believe that's why it validates things more for me about the fact that I believe it's always around. Now, in pursuit of this, right, is that you use equipment, and that's why you can sometimes communicate, my opinion, with an intelligent spirit using a spirit box, because it's going through a spectrum of audio that allows you to be able to hear it.
There's an old saying over here: behind every person stands 50 ghosts.
And you know what? And I think that might be a valid saying. Honestly, is that, and the more that because I come from a technical background, if it's not evident by now, and I will say is that that's one of the things that really that as we progressively go along and we investigate, that I truly believe that that's what we're experiencing. I believe we're experiencing almost, if you will, a dimensional shift. I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but for energies is that, and that's what I believe. I really believe that that's what they're made up of. Is that or us when we go to that different realm, it's just a graduation into a different frequency, whether that frequency is higher or faster, versus our frequency being, on one frequency channel, and them being on a different one, and that's why sometimes it can bleed back over. Just like, for example, when sometimes you do a Skype call and you're getting audio coming back to you, right?
Feedback, yeah. As we all know, yeah. Paul, do you agree with that?
I totally agree. I mean, I think for me, it's. I think it's just energy, but we just don't know what type of energy. And that's why we go out with all the equipment for EMF detections and like static, and so I just think they're energy that can manipulate other energies, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's what ghost is to me. What I wanted to ask the guys was, do you investigate other things other than just ghost sightings? Do you investigate UFO sightings or cryptozoology stuff? Because the paranormal is a broad area.
Right, and so ironically, right, is that we actually have an interest in cryptozoology, right? But we've never really made it a forefront of our stuff that we're investigating, right? Is that, and especially out here, I mean, we have a ton of forests out here and stuff, and ironically, I mean, and you guys get an exclusive on this. I have since installed a camera into our Spectrewaves van, but at the time we didn't, right? It wasn't a normal course of events that we usually would have done that, but we happen to be in a heavily wooded area, not too far away from our house, and we were actually just driving through the area, and we had to go back and look this up, but we saw in the headlights up in front of us this creature, can be best described as a creature with extremely long arms, stopped in the middle of the road, and it had to be at least, I'm going to say, like, let's see if I can do this in kilometers. No, I can't.
You can't.
I can't.
We're in miles, Albert. We are in miles. Yeah, it's in France and places like kilometres, but in the UK, we're still in miles.
Oh, still in miles, so that's
good. Although we're in decimal in everything else. But
that's right. I always have a hell of a time trying to convert things. Is that so? It was basically about a quarter mile away from us, up ahead. But we were on this long, straight patch of road, and this thing it was humanoid, right? It was a gray color, a light gray color, and had arms that extended down to the ground, and so it was semi-upright and had walked across the road, stopped, and continued to walk across the road. And as we drove up, I was like, oh, my God. So we're trying to get cameras out and stuff to take pictures, and, of course, it went into the woods, and that was the end of it, right? And so that was our only experience with anything that was crypto-like. But, of course, what did we do, right? We immediately came home and started looking it up. And I don't remember what somebody pegged that as, what it was called, but we saw a drawing of it.
We did, yes. Some other people did see that, too. And that was right by that old haunted Willowbrook Ballroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm sure if you've heard of anything about the Chicago area, right, is that there's a whole local legend, folklorish thing about Resurrection Mary. Anybody hear about that?
No, I can't say I have.
Oh, see, it doesn't make its way over to the UK.
I know. I've heard something about Resurrection Mary.
Have you?
I've heard that. Those two words I've heard.
Is that so? Resurrection Cemetery is a cemetery that's in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. And in the 1930s, down the street from Resurrection Cemetery used to be a ballroom. It just recently burned down, but it was called the Willowbrook Ballroom. And where we saw this cryptic wasn't really too far away from where this Willowbrook Ballroom was. And the story of Resurrection Mary is that this woman had gone to a dance. She was, they believed that she was 17, 18 years old. She had gone to a dance at the Willowbrook Ballroom. She was supposed to get a ride home. Her ride never came. She started to walk down, and this happened to be Archer Avenue. She was walking down Archer Avenue, and they believe she was hit and killed. Now, they can't peg it to exactly who it was, but they believe that she was one of a couple of people that were reported killed along that road. And so the story is through all of the 60s and the 70s and whatnot is that she became a hitchhiking ghost. So people would be going down past the Willowbrook, and it had to be usually a single man would see this girl in white at the side of the road hitchhiking. She would, they would pull over to the side. She would get in the back of the car. She would tell them an address to go to. And as they traveled to the address, she was quiet. She didn't really say anything. And she looked disheveled in the back seat. As they drove past Resurrection Cemetery, she was gone. They'd look in the rearview mirror and she'd be gone.
We've got many stories like that over here. We got one on Bluebell Hill. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I used to... I grew up not far from Bluebell Hill. So, yeah, I've heard that one so many times about the hitchhiker.
As it is, right, as it is with Resurrection Cemetery, it's the same thing. Now, the only physical evidence that I've ever seen... they have these brass, which is turned green over the course of time, but these brass gates, right? These brass bars on these gates. And back in the late 70s, one of the stories from one of the police officers in the town said they got a call because somebody had reported seeing a girl struggling to get out of the gate from inside of the cemetery. Now, the gate is right on a main thoroughfare road, so you can drive past it and you can see it. And so he went to go and investigate. He went there. Of course, there was nobody there. But when he drove up onto by the gate and actually put the spotlight on the gate, two of the bars on the gate were bent. Now, these were solid, constructed copper brass bars, and they were bent. And as he went to the bars, he actually looked at the bars. And just like you would take silly putty or putty and put it in your hand and make a finger impression, that's how these bars were. They were bent out like somebody was pulling on the bars, and there was finger impressions on it. Now, from a folklorish standpoint, right, you could say, okay, that's kind of folklore. But I will say this, is that people have pictures of the bars. Actually, the one gentleman that we did Spring Lake with, that we investigated with Spring Lake, he actually has actual pictures of the bars before they cut them out. Because people used to stop there and take pictures of the bars. So to this day, when you go past that gate, is that you can see on the gate itself, you can see where the bars were cut and where new bars were installed. You can still see that there's that delineation between the colors, but that's like the only thing that I know about with Resurrection Cemetery. No, I've never picked her up, and so Lainey would kill me if I picked her up.
Yeah, but unless you were recording now.
Unless I was, then she'd be okay with it, right?
With that, yeah.
I don't think you'd get far with her, Lainey.
Not too far.
Oh dear. Well, we're coming to the end now. So, do you want to tell us more about where you can be found?
Absolutely, and I'm gonna pass that to my better half because she's all on top of this.
Well, your sexy voice though is much better.
Yeah, but he's got a sexy voice, but you've got the looks. Remember that, girl.
Oh, well, thank you. So you can find us on YouTube, Spectrewaves, that's SPECTRE, Waves, WAVES, and that's all one word. And our website that we use is www.spectrewaves.weebly, WEEBLY.com. And yeah, if anybody's got any ideas of some places or some intake on places to investigate, I know it's in America, but hopefully one day we're going to be over in London doing some investigations.
And we're going to definitely take Irene up on it.
Oh yes, we are. Yes,
I tell you what, we've got some beautiful beaches down here. Sand that goes for miles, literally miles.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to email us, you can email us directly at spectrewaves@gmail.com.
Okay. And that's about it, folks. All right. Now, Mark's not here to say where we can be found, and I can never remember, but I can tell you now we're on
PAUKradio.com, isn't it?
Yeah, PAUKradio.com. A server goes out on all the big stations, Amazon, Google, everywhere, just about everywhere. Our podcast goes out literally everywhere. We're up in the clouds. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. Everywhere.
Literally everywhere. Now, this is the part Mark usually does, and I don't really take much notice. All I do at the end is usually say goodbye.
Now, don't you wish you'd taken notice now?
Don't I wish, yeah.
Because I don't know what Mark does either.
Neither do I sometimes.
Mark's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, huh?
That's it, absolutely.
He is. He's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. He keeps everything going and all together. But Kerry also has done a very good job today of keeping us going. And I want to say thank you to Kerry. I want to say thank you to Paul for stepping in, both of you. You have been absolutely brilliant. But most of all, I want to say thank you to our guests, Don and Laynee from Spectrewaves Paranormal.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, Irene.
Okay, thank you. And goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.